What's going on? So today we are going to check out a product by a company named Inlay Stickers. So let's take a look. I've always been a big fan of big block inlays. Now I see them on Les Pauls, jazz basses, or even some custom shops, and I just always admired the way they looked. So I decided to do some research and I stumbled upon a company called Inlay Stickers. And it looked like a cheap way to have nice big block inlays. So I ordered 2 packs up. These ones happen to be a bluish, blackish marble. You can get them in mother of pearl or abalone color, as well as various other designs and colors. They seem to be made in Japan, packaged well. They arrived in about 2 days, and when you undo the package, they're laid out on the strip of cardboard and then laminated in some plastic. Now, for ease of installation, I decided it was a good idea to grab some scissors and cut them into individual blocks. There's enough gap in between each block to cut them, although it is very small. So you do not want to cut the block itself, so just be very careful. And obviously, if you're not supposed to be using scissors, have someone old enough to do it for you. Now, once I started cutting them, I made sure I kept them in order. It usually started from thickest to thinnest and then got a little bit wider as it went down the board. Now you can see where my thumb is. That is the 12th fret marker. For some reason they put it all the way down at the bottom. I'm not really sure what the reason behind that was. It didn't really state anything on the packaging itself. So I kept everything in order and prepped them for installation. So I set them aside and grabbed the guitar, and this particular model has a Floyd Rose system on it. So I carefully undid my locking nut, and then I decided my approach was I was going to take the strings out from the Floyd Rose bridge itself instead of unwinding the strings and then having to straighten out the coils and just go through a hassle of getting everything back in place. I figured I would just slack the strings, and then once I had enough slack, I can take them out of the bridge itself by loosening the nuts or screws in the back of the Floyd Rose itself. So I carefully started slacking the strings, and what I decided was I was going to leave the high E and low E in place. And what that was going to be was kind of like a guide on where to put my stickers, being that the gaps on the outsides of the strings was pretty much the same. Obviously it's going to be a little different just because the thickness of the string itself. So I slacked every string in between those two strings, giving myself enough slack to where I could put some pressure with the whammy bar down on the Floyd Rose and undo the screws in the back of this trem system itself. Now once I got enough slack, I then put the locker back on the nut and then pulled the slack all the way out. And what that did was allowed me to lock the lockers back up, and then it kept the slack in place instead of wanting to pull back towards the coil on the tuners. So once I had everything locked back in place, I then took the whammy bar and undid all the screws in the back of the tremolo, leaving the high E and low E. By putting down pressure on the whammy bar, you can raise the screws in the back of the tremolo up. That way you don't damage your guitar body, scratch any paint. It gives you plenty enough room. If you're comfortable, you can even throw a rag down. I didn't really have to because I've done this plenty of times, but whatever you're comfortable with will work. So I carefully disconnected each string from the bridge, once again leaving the high E and low E just for a guide. Once all my strings were disconnected, I then coiled them up carefully without ruining anything and just got them up out of the way to where I would have complete access of the fretboard. Once everything was out of the way, I took a diluted 70% alcohol and wiped down the fretboard. This particular fretboard is finished, so I never really conditioned or oiled it. The only oils and dirt that was on it was from my hands and fingers itself. I don't really recommend using anything more powerful than that. You could probably damage the fretboard or dry it out too much. I'm not really sure what would happen, but I'm sure it's not that good. So I carefully wiped down each fret, not putting too much pressure on. There was a good amount of dirt that came off of it, so this is a pretty crucial step, I would say, if you do want your stickers to stick correctly. Once I was done wiping down each fret, I took a then second dry cloth and then re-wiped down the whole fretboard just to make sure it was 100% dry before I decided to install any kind of sticker. Obviously it's alcohol, so it does dissipate, so that was an easy part. Once everything was all dry, I took my first sticker, peeled it off of the cardboard. You're supposed to leave the plastic protection layer on the sticker, and it helps you kind of handle everything and handle the sticker without touching the spot that sticks onto the fretboard. It allows you kind of just put everything in place using the 2 strings for a guide. I was able to unstick 1 or 2 of them just to reposition them. You can get away with doing that once or twice, but anything more than that, you're probably going to ruin the sticker. So just be careful. Once I had the first one installed, I repeated the same step all the way down the fretboard, and it was nice and easy. I sped up this clip just to make everything go faster. Now in this particular guitar, it has offset inlay dots. So in front of the 12th fret, they're on the bottom of the fretboard, and behind the 12th fret, they're on the top of the fretboard. I did add to compromise a couple of the blocks just because the wideness of the fret. So a couple of the stickers are off to one side more than the other. It's barely noticeable to the naked eye. If I didn't tell you, you probably wouldn't notice, but since I did it, I can see it. But it even hanging on my wall, it's barely noticeable. And then the 12th fret itself has 2 dots, so that didn't really matter at all. But the sticker was kind of perfectly just wide enough for that fret. So once again, I did speed up the process just to make things go quicker. From that fret on, I did run into the same problem where I had to offset them a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal. It's maybe a couple of millimeters. In the next clip, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, but it's really not that noticeable, and I'm still happy with it. Now, this company makes a whole bunch of different designs, but the block ones just happen to be my favorite. I actually ordered a second set of the abalone blue style and put them on my solar guitar that is flow yellow, and with the blue it just kind of makes it look really cool. I really love the way they look. Now, as far as when it comes to removal, if you get sick of them, I don't see any problems removing them. It won't leave any residue or anything. It's just not that type of sticker. So I think I really think they're a cool product. Good cheap way to have cool looking inlays without having to bring your guitar to a luthier and spend a really lot of money actually. So hey, I like them, and I'll leave the link in the description. You can check them out.